I got it. So, now this is Clark Kent from the Predatory Lending Network, and I'm here at one of the booths here at Comikaze Expo talking to some of the vendors. Now, what can you tell us about your booth here today?
We represent Big Wow Comic Fest, so we came in, we've got some great fans here dressed up, just promoting our show, Big Wow Comic Fest.
Now, you guys are fans of Big Wow. What can you tell us about it?
It's definitely a show to go to if you're a huge fan of comic books, because they put comics first before anything else.
And you?
Also, art. They really push the artists. So if you're a big fan of the comic book art, that's definitely the show you want to hit up in San Jose.
Now it's next year. I know you're advertising kind of early for it. Why advertise so early?
Well, you need to let everybody know, and the reason we have this up so people can take their pictures, enjoy everything, get on Facebook. We just got to get the words out to the fans.
Now,
this is a comic book show.
Now, I noticed most of your stuff here is, I guess, what you would call Silver Age, or
Silver,
you have
Bronze Age,
Rocketeer and stuff like that. Is this something mainly for the older folks or younger folks?
It's also about getting the kids to read comic books. Put the video games down and start reading comic books. That's our philosophy, is comic books, like she said, comic books first.
Now, you guys are a fan of the old stuff. What do you think of compared to the old comic books to the ones nowadays?
Well, there's a big difference in terms of, like writing styles and art styles, but you always want to go back to the root of, your original stories, Detective Comics with Batman and Superman, for example.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times nowadays some of the characters' ideals get watered down because there's so many things that get put out, whereas when you look back at some of the vintage, gold and silver age stuff, you really get the essence of the characters and really the feel for what the artists and writers, the love that they had for what they were doing.
Now, I know The Rocketeer was a World War II based comic book and dealt a lot with the war. What do you think of comic books today dealing with current issues of today versus what we had back then? Because you were mainly dealing with World War II and the issues of that.
Rocketeer was actually was written by Dave Stevens in the 80s. It was based in the 50s. But it didn't really have a lot to do with the movie. Had more to do with the war than the comic book did. But it was just a classic sci-fi fun story that Dave Stevens wrote. But when we grew up in comic books, I'm almost 50 years old. Comics were self-contained. They were fun stories. The good guy came in, the bad guy came in, he did his bad thing, then the good guy found a way of stopping him. Nowadays, you need 26 issues with 18 different titles to tell one story. Kids get lost. Comic books aren't what they used to be. Comic books were fun when I was a kid. And they're not much younger than me, and they were fun. Now they're not as much fun. They're too serious. And when you're dealing with too many world events, you're losing the kids. They're not interested. They want to see Spider-Man fighting the lizard and winning. That's what they want to see. And they're not getting that as much as they used to.
An interesting story I did a while back was some of the Batman shooting and stuff like that. The question was, with all these superhero movies, are we creating real-life superheroes and real-life supervillains? Do you think comic book culture is actually creating superheroes and supervillains in society?
That's a hard one to say. I really couldn't answer that, but I will go far to say at these conventions, it's gotten more people into the idea of dressing up, the idea of being that. When I went to a convention, there was 8 guys dressed up. Now look right here, there's 20 people in our 30-foot eyesight. And it's great. It's people are getting the fun out of that part, because it's great. You come here, I couldn't do this as a kid.
I know, as a kid. Me too. I couldn't do that either.
But now I love it. I absolutely love this aspect of it. And people can come out and they can be inventive and they can be imaginative and be their favorite heroes and get away. There's a place for them to get away with it. And they won't go to school and be called geeks like we were.
Yeah. And I'm 20, 30 years ago. Yeah, right, that would have been bad.
So, I couldn't wear a t-shirt.
Yeah, so who's your favorite Simpsons character?
Right there.
Comic book guy.
Guy is my favorite.
So if someone was wanting to find out more about your booth or your company, how would they do that?
They're willing to walk up, or BigWowComicFest.com. So anything you can see, or the Big Wow Comic Fest Facebook, and there'll be pictures of our guests here, of other costume characters. For the next 2 weeks, we'll have tons of pictures from this show of all the different costume characters in front of this banner on our Facebook.
So in closing, any last minute things you folks like to say?
Oh, I just want to say everyone have fun, and if you can make it out to Big Wow, we'll see you there.
And you?
It's definitely a show to go to. You want to go to Big Wow.
I can't add anything. They said it all.
So I guess it's come to Big Wow because it's a big wow.